Alrighty, going to a video. Um, this is basically explaining about fixing your files whenever you create your own file, fixing any errors in it. And I'm going to explain a couple of things that you have to look at. When it comes to decompilers, the problem with decompilers is they don't always decompile everything exactly the same. Uh, you have to excuse me, I'll yawn a lot. I'm tired. But basically, a decompiler will take compile code and then it will try to decompile it, and sometimes it will replace the name of something that ain't exactly what it is in the code itself. And we're going to do the method structure file. Let me just open method creatures here for a minute. For example, you see this right here where we're saying strings. We're going to call it, skills. We're going to call it skills, and it's going to equal performer.getSkills. Well, when the decompiler decompiles, it sometimes might take, excuse me, it might take this right here, and it might call it, it might actually call that object or int or something. It might call it something other than what it is. And kind of like this right here, this boolean time equals true. This had to be changed because it was calling it an int, not a boolean. And it would basically, it was saying int time equals true. Well, true or false is a boolean. It can't be an int. But the compiler, for some reason, will call it an int, even when you open up another file. Now, if you go to the original code, if you could look at the original Java class before it was compiled, when it was created, it's not going to say int time equals true. It's going to say boolean times equals true. But the compiler, for some reason, gets things a little choppy and mixed up based on the compiler that you're using. Some compilers will do that, while other compilers will get it properly and get it right. And then if you see right here on this line right here where it says int time 1, well, in the code it actually called this int time, and basically up here it had already took the name time in this method and it called it equals true, and it was boolean. Down here you'll get an error because time has already been declared up here. So basically you have to change the name. You can't have time twice because it was the name time was already declared for something else, so you'd have to use a different name. So we add a 1 at the end and call it time 1. And I'm going to show you this here in a few seconds, so let's just go ahead and get started. You'll have to excuse me because I am going to yawn like crazy. I already got the stuff done right here, so we can go ahead and create the file. And let me close this out. Let me go down here to behaviors, to method structures, right here, or methods structure. And basically we take this and we take the class name, we create our file, the start of our file, and I had that name set, so we're going to do that. And since we're going to copy paste everything from over there, we're just going to take this and fix this up, because we don't want anything, we want a blank canvas, but I'm going to keep this right here because this was created on 418. This is just my own little bitty I'm tired, so if I forget a lot, excuse me. But anyway, we're going to paste all that code in, and we're going to get a bunch of errors over here on the right hand side, as you can see. And this decompiler, intellij, loves to use the word var a lot of times when it replaces a word. In the original code, this probably is not var3, it's probably an actual name. This fence array var2 equals vt dot get all fences. This is probably fence. Fence array equaling the word fence will equal vt get array, which has inside fence. And we could change this if we wanted to. Basically, we could say fence, but then we get these errors right here because var2, we have to change var2 to a fence. And basically that's our array now. But basically that's all it is to it. You know, it's changing and fixing what has been messed up. You didn't have to do this here. This is just I'm just showing an example right here when I change fence, because it would make more sense. You're creating a fence array, and we're going to call it fence, and it's going to equal this over here. It's weird to say we're going to create a fence array, and we're going to call it var2, and you know, a variable 2. Or the decompiler intellij loves to use the word var, so it'll replace a lot of words naming. It will replace a lot of the words with var. It's got a tendency to do that. But there's other compilers, like if we go over here into Eclipse, we got let's go over here. One. Let's go ahead and had it open. Don't want that. I want the server, and we go to the server and we go to method structure, and you see how it's done here. Now this is done with Finflower, I do believe. Let's see, does it say it at the top? No, this is Eclipse class decompiler plugin. But Eclipse also allows you to plug in other plugins like Finflower. So if we do Finflower, we give it a second, and it'll. Well, I guess it was Finflower. But we go to JD Core. Give it a second. Okay. I know to do it with Pyrocon or Procon. It'll change. It's still going to have a string at the top, but let me just show right here. Method structure. See how this one's done? If I change this over to Finflower, it's going to change the way it writes it. It'll change a lot of different things of how it decompiles the code out, and it's going to look different than it does in, for example, Pyrocon or Procon. There'll be things when you go through it that'll look different because it decompiled it different. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and fix all these errors. So the first thing you do is to start going through the list, and when you do this in IntelliJ has like a smart code system behind it or whatnot. It gives you hints, like right here when we hover over the error, it says that the action short 116 int, and it's red because it's saying this should be casted as a short. So we can right click on here and we can say second parameter is a short, and that fixes that error. It didn't actually typecast. This is a typecast, and it didn't typecast it to a short, but it's one of the things you go through with a lot of files. But once you do the file once and you save that file, you don't have to redo that file. So we're just going to go through here and fix some of these. Not everything will be a short, not everything will be a byte, so you got to be very, when you're doing this, try to let, if you get the option for IntelliJ to fix it for you, let IntelliJ fix it for you. Let it call the shot, because it's going to know more about what that is, because it can see the code in all these files over here, it can see all this code over here. So it's going to know more about, you know, what that is calling for. And like when you see right here, it says byte wall type equals true. Well, here we go again, where we got a boolean, but it's calling it a byte. And if we go right here and we say intellij fix it, intellij says change variable wall type to boolean, which will fix that error. Because if you got a true false, it cannot be anything other than a boolean. It has to be true false. So you have to use its proper. So we're just going to go through here and we're going to fix these. And there's quite a bunch of these in here because intellij has a problem of not wanting to go ahead and do this manually. There might be a setting to have it done. It's just I'm not that familiar with IntelliJ's IDE, and normally I don't use Java, so I'd be more or less to be in C# and studying C#. But since I'm modding Worm, and C# is so similar to Java, because basically the reason why and why I'm fixing these errors, I'll tell you a little bit about that. C# is familiar with Java for one big reason. Microsoft, and a lot of people who don't know this, Microsoft used to have a project called J++, and it was with Java, Oracle. And basically some falling out happened that Microsoft was trying to change some code or something with the Java for the J++, and Microsoft did not like, Oracle did not like the fact that Microsoft was trying to change the code. So there was a big uproar and stink, and it was starting to be a lawsuit or something like that. And Microsoft decided to go ahead and say, well, fine, we're going to scrap it. So they scrapped J++, and then Microsoft decides, well, we're going to create our own object-oriented programming language. And at that point, they decided to take the best of C, the best of C++, the pretty much Java, and create their own version of Java. You know, and that's why they look so much alike. The only difference between C# and Java is their syntax, and that's basically how you would call something. A lot of things are similar, and between most program languages the only difference is syntax. I'll get to these ones here in a minute because I'll explain those to you. Right now I'm just going to go through and try to get all the shorts and bytes done real quick, and then we'll go through the other ones. But you know, if you want to learn more about programming, I recommend going to 3D Buzz and taking their C# course. You can pay $200 a year, and you can, you know, learn all their courses with no limit for that year that you've paid, or you can purchase the courses individually. If you ain't got a lot of money to pay for the schooling by the year so you can surf anything that you need to, it's good to just get like a C# course and take it. Taking their 101 C# course, I think it's like $20. You get a bunch of courses in there, and they go over a lot of stuff. If you go out here and you're trying to learn programming, the worst thing you'll find is somebody trying to teach a programming language, and basically a lot of these YouTubers are going to be people who know a little bit about programming, and they're going to go out there and do a half-assed video trying to a lot of them I noticed are just trying to get a bunch of people to get hits on their website, and in that process, when they're doing that, what they're actually doing is they're trying to do many different videos to get many people to like and subscribe to their channel, in a process, they might know one programming language, but then they go and try to do videos on a different programming language. And when they do that, they end up getting a lot of stuff confused because of syntax, and they don't truly understand it. And you know, it can be frustrating trying to learn to code. So I recommend going to an actual school. I'm not trying to down these people out here trying to sell knowledge, but you know, like lynda.com, trying to go and learn courses from them, that's just a bunch of bogus shit, because you get a bunch of 2-3 minute videos, you really don't learn shit, you walk out of there like you didn't learn anything, and you're still scratching your head and trying to figure out you know, just trying to figure out stuff because you didn't learn nothing in that little bit of time. And the teachers that are teaching you that crap, well, they don't, you know, the worst thing about a person trying to teach you is they forget what it's like to start out and learn. And the worst thing is when you start trying to learn a programming language, it's like trying to, your only language is English, okay? And you're trying to understand someone speaking in Russian or German or Chinese to you, and you've never heard the language before and you don't understand it. That's what it's like, because they're going to throw off terminology, words that you do not hear in your everyday vocabulary. You don't hear them in school. When you're growing up and you're going through high school and everything, you don't hear them in your everyday language pattern. So when it comes to trying to learn, they forget that, you know, they had to learn this, and then they try to use the same language because they got used to calling these things certain words, using certain words that people don't use in their everyday language, and it gets confusing. The worst thing is when you first start trying to learn and people start talking stuff like camel case, all the way to I'm trying to think of all these names of stuff that you're not going to be used to hearing all the time. The best thing to do is to take a course, and 3D Buzz C# course is one of the great courses to take, and it will help you even in Java. Even though it's a C# language you're learning, it's still, the code is basically the same except for syntax, and it is very good to sit down and learn that. That's one of the best courses I've seen. They'll teach you a lot of stuff. They'll teach you a lot about programming, and they're going to go in depth with it with you. You're not going to feel left out. Now that I got all the shorts and bytes fixed, let's go back down here to some of these other problems. Now, 1 minute. Okay, here we go. We get to this point right here. Int limit equals true, and then we have int limit. Int limit says it's got a problem. It says right here, limit is already defined in the scope, and right here it says incompatible types. Here it is, trying to call an int limit, and we're going to equal it to true, which is a boolean, so we have to change this to a boolean. Now, even though we do that, we still have this limit here. This limit, the reason we have an issue here is because up here, limit has already been used, the word limit. So we can't have limit twice. Up here it's used as a boolean, down here it's trying to be used as an int. So what we need to do is change the name. So we can add a 1 to the end of it and call it limit 1. And then we have to go down here and we have to change it here to limit 1 as well. And that error is now fixed because we had to change the name for int, because limit was already used here. And you'll find a lot of this, like here it is again. So basically we'll go over here, oh come on, give me my little red thing, and we'll go ahead and do that a boolean. We'll change these to limit 1. And some people might be like, why are you calling that one limit 1? You use limit 1 up there. I thought you said you couldn't have it more than once. That's per method. This limit 1 cannot be seen outside this method right here. This is the method, has enough skill to expand structure, and this is the end of the method. Then this is a new method. Therefore, we can reuse this in the new method because inside this method, it's not going to look in here to find limit 1. It's going to look in here. So we can go through here and we can say limit 1 again and fix this error. So let's go to the next error. And there's a lot of these down through here. Max slope should be a boolean. And then we got one right here. Okay, let's start at the top here. Now when we look through here, it says right here, integer array t needed. Now let's see what it says to do. It says reuse previous variable t needed declaration. See up here, we're calling an integer array t needle. It's already been called and it's equaling null. If we reuse t needed, it'll equal null. But down here we're just calling integer array t needed. If we tell it to use the pre-existing one, it's going to call it null. We don't want the value to be null. So we can go down here and we can say t needed 1, and then we can go down through here and we can change each one of these. So let's find t needed. We can do Control F and let it highlight all of them, so we can start fixing. Each one of these will have to be called t needed 1 within this method right here until we get to another spot. So we find all of them and we change them to the new name. Until we get to the end of the method. And as you can see, all the errors are gone. So basically, you know, that's what you're going to be doing. You're going to be going through. It looks like we got. Where is it? Right there. Oh, there it is. It's hard to see that little red squiggly line. Just typecast it like. So let's go to the next one. And here again, we got it was called an int, and it should have been a boolean. Then here again, we got boolean time equals true. So let's just call this time 1. And let's just call this t needed 1. And that'll fix our errors. Instead of going through here doing all those, we'll just change the boolean's name. And what do we got here? We missed this one here. And did I miss any more in here? So let's go to the next one. And right here it says check is already defined in the scope. That means it's already been used. And this is what happens whenever IntelliJ decides to go through and, or any, not just IntelliJ, it's any compiler goes through. For example, let's find the top of this method right here. We're going to go down. Our first problem is right here. It says int x is already defined, which int x was defined right here, where int x is equal to int position x 2, which is used in this part. So we can't reuse x again, so we can say x1. So then we got to go through here and we got to change each one of these x's to x1. So let's just go ahead and find x, so it'll highlight our x's, so we'll know where they're exactly at, and we'll go ahead and change these to the new name. Down here you don't have to, because x is something else in this for loop. And we follow this all the way down. And this for loop is different. Okay, that's the end of that method. So the next problem we had in this method here was string check. And we get down here to our first error, which right here is check. Check, the name check is being used again, but check has already been, the name check was used in this method already as a string variable. So we can't use check as a string variable here, so we can say check 1. But then we get all these little errors here because we got to change these to check 1. So we go through and change these to check 1. And make sure we didn't have any more. And as you can see, this method is fixed. Let's see what we got right here. And then right here, x is already defined in the scope. So let's call x1. And then we got to change all these to x1. And then we go through. See, we got an error up there, so let's go up here and find out what it is. Okay. I didn't get far enough up. There it is, check. And let's see. Did we call this check's been used? Oh, that should have been x1 as well. Check. Might not have been initialized. This is where we changed it to check 1. I just missed it, that's all. And let's put in here. Looks like we still got one right there. Yep, this was not initialized. So we'll go through here and we'll change these checks to the name check 1 as well. And then we go to our next error, which is, this is a Boolean. I'll select it, there we go. And what else we got here? We got one right there, which is time. Time was already used up here as the Boolean. We can call this time 1, so we ain't got to change all those times. Go to the next error. Here it is, time again. Change it to a Boolean. These times will go out, so we'll change this to time 1 under this method. And we forgot this byte. Scroll down to the next error, which is right here. Here we go with time again. So we can just change these, and we know time is going to be used in here, like right there. So we'll just go ahead and call this time 1. Then we don't have to change all these different times down here. We can use that. Only have to change the one variable. And go right here. There's time again. Boolean again. We'll change it to time 1. Then we got, yeah, this one's going to be in here quite a bit. So we got that. Go down to the next one. Same thing. And fix that. We'll go down here. Same thing. In this method. Fix that. Go even further down. Int color needed equals true. Change it to a boolean. Go down to the next one. Change this to a boolean because it was done wrong. And then let's see, looks like we got something up here. Yeah, so need to change that to a boolean as well. And it looks like we got a messed up one there, which is this boolean again, same thing. And we'll just call this time1. Then we got an error down here, which is shorter a byte, probably a byte, yeah, it's short. Alright, and we missed one here or there, I think. Where did we miss one? It's hard to see these little things, and that little line is very small. There. Okay. That should be a byte. And our file's done. And as you can see, we can recompile it. And we got our new method structure. And when we recompiled it, we should have our new class file where it's recompiled. And that's pretty much it. You know, it's just learning the way a compiler works. It would be nice to have the actual Java code class, the actual Java files rather than the class files, because the class file has already been recompiled back up. It might not be, what's the word I'm looking for? It might not be obfuscated, where you have to, you know, where it's the language really scrambled. But the point is, when a compiler decompiles a class file, it doesn't put everything exactly the way it should. It can rename things, like for example, where it says wall inner, it could call wall inner var 22. And when it does that, it's harder to understand or to figure out what the code's doing. You then have to research what actually is var whatever, you know. Makes things a little bit slower. But basically, when you're fixing the code, it's just basically the simple terminology of your Java. You know, I don't know why the IDE does that. It's stupid that it does what it does, like changing a bool to an int or to a short when it shouldn't do that. But you know, I don't understand everything about compilers and why they do what they do. I just know they do what they do, and it works. You know, it compiles it down to a language you can read, even though it has some errors sometimes. But hopefully this video helps a little bit more of understanding of fixing your file, finding out, you know, understanding what it means when it says this has already been defined in the scope, and what it's saying is, and what it means by scope is within this method. It doesn't mean the entire project or this entire class. It just means within this method, the scope of this method. That name was already used once, and you can't reuse a name twice for two different things. You can't use it as an int, then use it as a float, and then use it as a bool. A bool can't be an int or a float or a double. A boolean has to be a boolean. It can't be anything else. So hopefully this little video right here helps you out. If you have any questions, let me know.